Hi, Tamar Guse. It's lovely to meet you, and thank you for making time to meet up with us at such short notice.
You're welcome.
And I'm so glad you could, and we're pleased to meet you. So what would like to hear a little bit about your background and sort of how you got into this art form that you are enjoying now, and where next from here.
So I was born in South Africa. My parents are from Israel and Germany. My parents were in South Africa for work, and that's where I was born and where one of my sisters was born. And when I was 3, my parents decided to move from South Africa, and we traveled around the world a little bit and eventually ended up in New Zealand.
Right, okay. And this is where you spent?
This is where I spent my childhood.
And your schooling days?
Yep.
And your...
So we moved here when I was 5 years old, and I lived in New Zealand until I was 18.
18. What were you doing? Did you go study design or at school, or what did you do?
So I was always interested in arts
Even as a child, right? Any form of art or?
Yes, well, all forms of art.
All forms of art,
I just loved doing art.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did in high school. I chose all the art subjects.
Yeah.
And then I left high school and studied design in university.
Which university did you go to?
I went to Victoria.
Victoria, yeah. Okay. And you did the design course there?
Yes. And then my grandfather died half a year into that course. And my mother encouraged me to go to Israel and visit family over there.
Before it was too late, yeah.
To get to know them a little bit.
To know them better, brilliant.
So I traveled to Israel and I volunteered in a zoo over there.
Right, okay.
And I met my husband over there.
Okay, right.
I meant to return to New Zealand, but 7 years later.
And you got married during that time?
I got married. I had 2 children.
Children, yes.
And then I started missing my family very much.
Over here?
Yeah, in New Zealand.
But in that time that when you were there and you became a mother, what is it that led you to
weaving?
Yes.
So when I had my first child, I found I didn't have time for anything anymore, particularly myself. And I felt myself losing a sense of identity, of self. And I needed something just for me. And so I went to a teacher.
Yeah. In Israel, where you were living. Yes.
I went to a woman in Israel who was teaching weaving.
Yeah.
Traditional basket weaving. And I took a few workshops there.
Right.
And I learnt from her and continued from there.
So traditional basket weaving in Israel, is it like this or different?
So she was teaching round baskets and ribbed baskets.
Okay, right. So you learned the basics from that, you got that. And then you came back to New Zealand.
Yeah, and we came back to New Zealand, it must be 5 years ago now.
Right, okay.
So my second child was 8 months old. And and we settled here in Waipara.
Waipara,
because my family lives close by.
Yeah, okay.
And I continued weaving.
And so the weaving, the work that you do, what is the kind of weaving that you do? You started with?
I do contemporary sculptural.
At the moment, but you started with?
I started with traditional weaving.
Utilitarian type of baskets and functional baskets like these ones here.
So that's what I love about weaving, is that it's beautiful and functional at the same time.
Yeah, agree. Okay.
And then I moved on to contemporary sculptural weaving. Weaving's amazing because you can create any form from it. It kind of naturally flows out by itself. I like incorporating natural elements into it.
And what's the natural element there?
So in here I've put a slice of pine cone in the center.
Yeah.
And then the weaving spirals out from
Beautiful,
it.
yeah. And you've taken the colors from what you see in the pine cone as well.
Yes,
Sort
yeah.
of, and you've done that. What about the piece in the middle? What's that supposed to be?
So this is called escargot.
Escargot, yeah.
It reminds me of a snail, the shape.
Yeah.
I find when I weave that I don't think of a shape when I start. I let the natural elements that I'm weaving around dictate the shape that evolves.
Yeah. And the piece next to it, the antler.
The antler piece.
Who hunts? Who does the hunting? Where do you get the antlers from?
So I got these antlers from a farmer who grows, farms deer.
Deers, and you get the antlers.
Yeah.
And I see you use driftwood in the escargot and pieces of other wine or wood that you use. So what kind of what are these? These are rattan.
Yeah, this is reed.
Reed.
It comes from the rattan palm. It's grown in Malaysia, and it's imported into New Zealand.
So are you going to continue using reed?
So I'm trying to be more sustainable in my art practice. I've planted my own willow grove. In
your parents' place?
At my parents' lifestyle farm.
Fantastic.
And I'm planning to use that in my art practice.
And that can be also dyed or used in its natural form. Or
willow takes longer before you can use it in weaving.
Okay. And like this piece here, for instance, and there's another beautiful piece there. It reminds me of sun.
Yes.
And you've used a piece of driftwood in the center.
Yeah. So that's a piece of driftwood in the center.
So I was going to ask, how do you do the rattan? How do you?
So what I've done here is I've drilled into the antler, and then I've taken
the ribs. Is it?
I've taken the ribs and I've plugged them into the holes here.
That's the first thing.
Yeah. And then I weave back and forth.
And where do the ends go of the weaving?
They're slid into the weaving.
Yes, I can see that. It's a bit of.
It's beautiful.
It's beautifully fit, and you've used a piece of.
That's just a piece of timber, just a branch.
Yeah. It's just beautifully done.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it sort of goes with the shape of the antler. So, so where to from here? What is your next adventure in the space apart from?
At the moment, I'm teaching basket weaving.
Oh, okay.
I teach in the area. I teach in Hamner Springs and Christchurch.
Is there a lot of interest in basket weaving?
There is actually.
Yeah, is it young people or older people?
Actually not. I would say it's mostly people in their 40s to 60s.
Oh, okay.
I think there's a greater interest in sustainability and people wanting to learn the handcrafts that their ancestors knew.
There you go. Yes.
So maybe people don't want to see these crafts die out, and that might also be part of the reason.
Wonderful, yes.
So yes, I'm teaching workshops, and I've got an exhibition in July.
And where is that?
That's just in Rangiora.
Rangiora.
Yeah.
Your own solo exhibition?
And no, I'm doing it with another artist. This is Helen Kendall.
Helen Kendall.
She does beautiful paintings.
Hey, thank you so much for taking this time out. Yeah, I know we just so happy you could make the time. I know it was very sudden, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, Tamar.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.